The other captain and the superintendent went out with back problems, and I showed up to work one day and I was the only guy here. Here I am now. This is my 31st fire season I'm going into, so, you know, 2 more after this. My wife's looking forward to it and hanging out and going to do the summer stuff again. I haven't done summer stuff since 1990 would have been the last summer. Well, 91 was a pretty slow year, so I still got to hang out on the beach a lot. And really, it's just managing discomfort. That's, you know, for the last 30 years, I've been managing discomfort. Because everyone talks, oh, we don't bring a pillow or try and be, you're never really comfortable. I have, you know, a very expensive bed, sleep good and everything, but the best I sleep is on my air mattress next to my truck. Inflate the air mattress just right and it feels good. As good as it can be, but, you know, when you're beat up and tired, what doesn't feel good when you're just resting? You know, it's been 100 years that crews have been around. We fight fire exactly the same, except we have newer tools. The start is to anchor and flank. Start at an anchor point and you flank the fire until you get around it, and hopefully, you know, that puts it out. I knew the reputation once I heard it, once I started in this field, that this crew was a good crew. It was run by one superintendent for 27 years, and he built on the ones who came before him. And, you know, this is tough country. Fuels and the terrain make it really hard, and they trained and learned how to do that really well. So that just carries over into all the other areas. When you come to this crew, that's what you hear about first, is that it's been a good crew. So you take that into account as you come in here, that you want to uphold that. And that's something we really build on here with the guys. Is we're not here to set ourselves apart specifically as individuals, but to maintain what has come before us. And you want to live up to that and show that you can be as good and continue that. Municipal fire departments have a broad scope, a broad range of things that they do. We don't. We specialize in one thing, and that's being out here in the wildland and fighting those types of fires. That's why we're good at it. Every year for 6 months, this is all we do. That's all I think about: fighting fire, taking care of my crew, and doing this job. So I started in 1991. Overall, I did 6 years on the Sundowners, and then I got on a Hotshot crew after that. I started on the Sierra Hotshots, the Sierra National Forest, did 3 seasons there. I really enjoyed it and wanted to stick with it, but I had just gotten married, having kids, so I needed to get a full-time job, and I wanted to come back home because I still lived in Ventura. I was just working in Sierra, so I took a permanent job on the Los Padres National Forest as an apprentice, which was a program they did for usually new firefighters, or, you know, to get in as a permanent. Came back here, did time on a helicopter and an engine, and then was brought over back to the Hotshots here, and I've been here ever since. Initial Hotshot training is no different than initial anything training. You learn the basics of fighting fire: fuel, weather, topography, how those things come together and cause fire to move and react. And everybody, we all learn the same thing regardless of where we start. We just approach it a little bit differently with, you know, what module we're on, right? An engine versus a helicopter versus a Hotshot crew. When you sit and you listen to a campfire and the sounds, and if it's quiet around you, you hear the crackle and the pop and maybe the draw of oxygen in there. So multiply that 10, 50, 100 times depending on the type of fire that you're on, and then the smell, the smoke that you smell, but what else, you know, the different things that you smell burning. Or for the most part, it's, I think, a memory of camping, really, until you start thinking about the work that you're about to go do and how hard it is and what your body's gonna feel. I would say everything that you're looking for is opportunity, because every fire is different and the weather's always changing. Fuels change over, you know, distance and time, and it's all based on the 290. That's where you get all the information of all the things to look for. And then you're thinking about seasonality, how much rainfall or snowpack there was, all those, you know, the drought and all those things, and you're just weighing it, and you're just looking for that opportunity that you can go do the work that you know is necessary to be put in and stop the fire where it's at. Or are you falling back, and that's it. It's just constantly changing. There's the basics of firefighting, but then there's just finding the right opportunity where you can implement that. And then knowing also how your people are and what you have at hand that can help you out. I spend a lot of time thinking about this. I still get to go out on the line all the time, and when I'm by myself walking the edge, I can actually still put in fire line by myself or join my crew and put in fire line, where some people they work from an office, or even when they go to the fire, they're just managing from a distance. So they're not out there going directly fighting fire anymore. I don't think there's too many people out there that are looking to be here long term anymore. When I interview people, I ask them, I say, I'm looking for somebody 3 to 5 years. That's the commitment I'm looking for them to come here. 3 years, you kind of start getting a feel for what it's really about. 5 years, then you kind of have to make the decision, are you going to do this long term, or is it time to move on? Well, safety is always, the big thing. Taking care of your people that work for you, but teach people how to fail, but fail safely. You can't go out and expect that every decision you make is going to be the right decision. As long as they can make a decision, because you're pressed, there's always this time crunch on everything we do out here. Like I said, the opportunity may be there, but if you don't move toward it right then, time's going to push it out of your reach. Make the decision, go do it, and if you fail, that's okay. But if you've gotten everybody out safely in that failure, you learned a good lesson that didn't work and why. You can look at it and figure it out later and understand it. If I guided you and I didn't ever let you make the decision and see it go bad, what would that reinforce in you? Even sometimes when I've made decisions that worked out, that seemed maybe contrary to what I preach about doing the job or how we do it or the safety of the job, I want to make sure that they understand the things that led up to that made it safe to do. Everything has consequences in the end at some point. When you do make a decision, do you stand by it if you get called on it? You have to be able to stand up and say, this is what we're going to do, and have the reasons for it. You don't just arbitrarily grab a decision and say, this is what we're doing. And if somebody asks you what, they might need details on why you're doing it before they go help you out. So it's all performance based, right? Everything we do, from getting on the crew to, maintaining just the minimum level, it's all based on your performance. And the better job you do, the faster you can move up into the next position. But it's all learned. You have to learn the position you're in and be an expert in that before you take on the next level, or it doesn't work. Because if you move up to the next level and you have to go back down and you weren't that good at it, the crew's not going to be as strong as it should have been. It's a good competition. There's always somebody better than you are. Whether you run into them while you're doing it or not, you may be lucky and you may be the best one for the time that you're there, but somewhere there's somebody probably better than you are. You guys are working together in close quarters in a really dangerous environment. Chainsaw spinning at 4,500 RPM. You're there working side by side, relying on him to do a specific thing that he's going to do. If he changes that randomly, that could put you in danger, right? And you're also the leaders showing the other guys where, you're the one opening the trail, showing these guys where to go and dictating how much work they're going to do or how fast they're going to do it. You rely on each other. I mean, my first saw partner from when I got on a hotshot crew, we're still really good friends. We don't talk very often anymore, but when we do, it's just like old times. It's like we've never been apart. We'll always be friends like that. And that's the beauty of it, is you learn how to work with this person and take care of them, and they take care of you. And that's the job, the saw team. You're a team and you take care of each other the whole time. Yeah, I mean, you come in and you might just be introduced to these guys for the first time. You don't know anything about them. I mean, for me, when I bring the crew on in the mornings, when we get here, we meet outside here. We do our morning briefing and stuff. And the first day, that's what we do. We come in, we introduce ourselves and talk about our experience and what our expectations are, what we hope to get out of it. And then, you do some training together. You're hiking the hills, you're sweating, you're hurting together. You're learning how to work together, and it all culminates in this bond that you achieve, because You're making this one thing happen. And when you get out on a fire and you see the result of it, see the good that it does, stopping a fire or saving someone's house or, saving resources out in the wilderness, you get a sense of pride and it feels pretty good, And at the end of the day, when you've given everything you got and you guys are all tired together and you just, throw down your sleeping gear and lay down and you feel this sense of accomplishment, I think that, radiates throughout the whole group. It gives you something to feel good about at the end of the day, at the end of the season, and knowing that you did that with all these other guys, and it just gives you a sense of accomplishment in the end. My hope is that, everybody has the chance to learn everything that I know from me to them, and that they can take that and be better than I was, or better than I am. I mean, every year, I probably talk to 20 to 50 people looking for a job. From when I first started, probably even before I was a captain, like they'd come and interview with the superintendent and maybe he'd, call me and I'd take them up the hill. That's always, it's been something I've been doing for 15 plus years. I remember talking to Jordan because he was a student and he was calling and asking about it. And when I was, younger, I would actually wear my gear and lead them up the hill. And I'd say, go at your pace. But I've always made it a point to talk to them. Can you do this and hold a conversation? Because you have to think, and that's a big part of it. But if you're struggling so hard and you're just looking at the ground and focused on trying to breathe and get to an end point, what about all the other stuff that's happening around you? That was one of my big things, is to make them think and talk. And so at the beginning of every steep pitch or hill, I would ask them a question. It was kind of fun for me and just kind of something to do. But it had a little bit of meaning also, otherwise. The buckle is something that you get to have to show other people what your accomplishment was. Every crew's got their own version of how you earn that buckle. This crew, it's performing good for the season that you come on, and there's a lot of pride involved in getting that in the end. All these guys you're going to run into who were hotshots once are always going to have good stories about being a hotshot for the most part. I'm sure there's people who didn't enjoy it so much, but overall, you hear most of them say that those were the best years of their lives, or had the most fun, or it's just a symbol of that you get to have and share. And when you see somebody else with it, or they see, and here and on the other crew that I was on, is you get one buckle. That's it. You lose it. I haven't seen a whole lot of books about hotshots to begin with. One or two that I have been more real experiences, but with a fictional story involved. And this was more just from his viewpoint, what he saw as a hotshot crew and what he understands. And I thought he did a good job of describing it. It was interesting for me to see from a first year person. I mean, third year in fire, he did 2 seasons on a Type 2 crew, but a first year on a hotshot crew. Things are a little different. Things are at a much faster pace than some of the other crews. And I thought he did a really good job describing the way people interact and get along and how those bonds are formed during that. What you need to understand is where you live, what the wildland coming into it is, because the wildland is one thing, but once structures start, and if it's pushing that towards where you are, that's what you really got to start worrying about, because that's a different fuel type, something that's uncommon. We saw it in the Eaton and the Palisades fires. There's nothing you're going to do. There's no preparing for that. It's get out of the way and see what happens. But in order to prepare for that, I think they need to pay attention to defensible space on the areas where the wildland does impact the structures initially, and having that taken care of. Because everyone will tell you, if you come out here, they're going to tell you, cut the trees back, keep 100 foot, and people are like, but I want nature right up against my house. And it's like, well, then there's a certain line you have to draw, that if you're going to have nature there, you're also going to have the ability to have nature take your home away from you. So what are they willing to sacrifice for what they're having? I've responded up here and been in charge of a fire that started on top of the pass and blew all the way into Santa Barbara. There's not much you can do about it. I underestimated what it did, and it got away from me, but I was lucky it didn't burn any structures down. It just happened to be just the way it happened. But I had to make the decisions where the evacuation line was, and should they move more people, and those are tough calls to make. Everybody does it for a different reason, and why you start may not be where you end up, right? You start off because you want to have a challenge and you want to get some experience, and then you find out you really like being out there, or you like the feeling of once you catch a fire or a certain portion of a fire and stop it, that makes you feel good, or you feel like you've protected somebody. I mean, everybody's got their own reasons for it, you know. I couldn't even tell you what my reasons are anymore. You know, this is just what I do. I enjoy it, and I think that's a big part. You have to do something in this world to sustain your existence, right? And if you can find something you like, then you should stick with it. There's a lot of things you give up being a hotshot because you're gone. I have a wife and 2 kids. Kids 18, so 36 birthdays. I might have got to see 4 of them because my kids were born during fire season. Luckily, my wife, she's a really strong person, and she was able to take care of that and do a really good job. Made the sacrifice to support my family doing this, but I also didn't get to be there for a lot of the events, you know. But again, would I have been happier doing a job I didn't really like and existing, or being able to do something I really felt I was good at and accomplished at and enjoyed being out there doing? This fuel type, you can't just go out and anytime you want, just do a burn, or this fuel wants to burn when it's extreme and ready to burn. You can't force it to burn before that. You just make a mess. It just depends on the fuel types too, and where you're at, right? The grass and oaks, you can do a lot more. Timber, you can burn differently, but you get good precipitation for 5-10 years, and then you get a drought for a couple of years, and one good day of winds, half the town's gone. And there's nothing we can do about that. You look at the larger environmental factors and how long is it going to take for that to change, or how long till we adapt to that somehow, or the environment starts to change and adapt to that. Those are all things that we don't have any control over, and we're just trying to protect what we have. You feel pretty insignificant when, you know, there's a big raging fire going by, right? Even if you are almost 100% sure you're safe where you are and that it won't get you, to have it come burning by you, or, you know, the force that it puts out, it's maybe initially when you start, it's scary, and there's points where even later on when you're doing it, when it moves something more than you expected, you're like, oh, that's kind of terrifying. But it's also just impressive to sit back and watch and to see it happening. It's a natural force. Nobody's doing that. That's just what it does. You talked about how everyone talks about the elite soldiers, or we're like a paramilitary, the way we're structured and everything, but there's nobody out trying to kill us. We're just there. It's just something that's happening, and it's for us to understand how not to put ourselves in a place that is threatening to us in our lives. And if you approach it in the way that you know as much as you can about where you're going to and what you're doing, you can be there and see it happen, and it's impressive. That jet engine sound, or the freight train people talk about, if you hear that, you want to make sure you're paying close attention and understand where it's coming from and where it's going to hear it start up before that happens, or, you know, you see something, the torching and the distance too, like to see stuff happen and then hear the sound come afterwards after something torched, and then the sound, you know, it's kind of like being far away when someone shoots a rifle or something, and then you hear the report later on. But more just being there and listening to it and feeling it. I'm hoping that Hotshot crews still exist in something that I recognize long term, because there's a lot of changes going on in the agency or fire itself, and people's perception and how we should fight fires. I don't like to be compared to soldiers or the military or anything, but there is something to be said for that, right? There's the peacetime army versus the wartime army, which is better and more prepared. It's not the guys who are sitting around waiting all the time, right? It's the guys who know it's coming, and they have to prepare and be be ready to go. This time of year right now, guys are starting to look at the hill and go test themselves and see where they're at and start pushing, because they know the time's coming that they're going to have to be at 100% ready to go and do this job. Now they want not just for us to go out and fight fire, they want us to go out and do prescribed fire and do all that kind of stuff. And when you've worked over a year in 6 months, it's hard to go out and do that. And if they want to make everybody a permanent employee all the time and sustain that, for me, I don't have to do a lot of that. I get prepared, and this is my downtime. I can take time off. But if I have to show up every day and they want me to go to other places and do prescribed fires, when am I getting to rest and recuperate and do the things I need to so I can focus and then come back in and prepare for the long, hard summer?